Welcome to the Empowered Soccer Society, where we believe in working smarter, not harder, so you have more time and energy for the things that truly matter. Each week, we share a powerful strategy with a new guest expert to help you achieve more with less effort. If you want to get these weekly tips, subscribe to the channel, follow the podcast, and be sure to sign up for our weekly email newsletter. Everything is linked below. Let's get into this week's tip.
Hello, my name is Edla, and welcome to my hack of the week. I am a mental health counselor in North Carolina, and I was my parents' caregiver for over a decade. My slacker hack of the week is a two-step strategy to emotionally regulate your aging parents. When I became a caregiver for my parents, I naively assumed that they would be cooperative with me, telling them what to do to keep them safe. Relinquishing control to their daughter was not an easy transition. I quickly realized that I needed to come up with another way of communicating with them so that they could maintain a sense of control and we could avoid power struggles. I also realized that there wasn't a lot out there available to deal with the day to day challenges of caregiving that come along with caregiving. So I pulled from my professional bank of knowledge and communication strategies to adapt the skills for engaging my aging parents. The roles had reversed or done a 180, so to speak. So let's dive in. Yeah. Basically, there are three things that we have to look at. We've got to talk a little bit about some basic brain science because you need that information to communicate with your parents more effectively and to foster cooperation. You may be wondering, what does the brain have to do with it? Well, to understand your parents' behavior, it's really important that we understand a little bit about how the brain operates and how to recognize behaviors. And we'll be looking at specific strategy to adjust your communication style with them. All right. Obviously, the brain is very complex, but for the sake of our discussion, I'm going to give you a simplified explanation of the brain by using my hand, so bear with me. If you hold up four fingers with your thumb in the palm, now close your hand overneath, you'll see that you make a fist, and I call this the hand brain. Let me move it so you can see it in the camera. Here is the prefrontal cortex, this portion here. That's the fingers. The interior part of the brain is the limbic system. And then the open hand would represent the brain stem. The base of the brain stem I refer to as the safety part of the brain. The limbic system is the emotional part of the brain, and the prefrontal cortex is the thinking part of the brain. Now let's dig a little deeper. If we want our parents to be self-regulated and to solve problems, we need to get them in this prefrontal cortex or the thinking part of the brain. So the two steps that you need to understand to make this work for you is to, one, identify their brain state. So are they in their prefrontal cortex, their limbic system, or their brain stem? And then the second step is to actually, quote unquote, talk to that brain state. Now, how do you do that? All right, well, first let's look at what does it look like when someone is in their prefrontal cortex? What does it look like if someone's in their limbic system? And what does it look like if someone's in their brainstem? So a person that's in their prefrontal cortex, the thinking part of the brain, they can problem solve. They can make decisions. They can make choices. They're generally reasonable. We don't have a lot of conflicts here when you're talking to your parents if they're in their prefrontal cortex and if you're in your prefrontal cortex. The interior part of the brain, which is the limbic system, you can tell if someone's in their limbic system because they're generally crying, cursing, yelling, blaming, name calling. Those are the kinds of behaviors that you'll notice. They're in this emotional, dysregulated state. And if you try to reason with someone or problem solve with someone that's in their limbic system, it will just escalate the situation. which is why identifying these brain states is so important. And then obviously the brain stem, because it's the safety part, this looks like fight, flight, fool, freeze, or fawn. So they may not literally hit you, but they might. But their words can be harsh. They may walk away. They may shut down. Any kind of freeze response would be that they don't feel safe. Again, if you try to problem solve or get them to answer questions, it's just not going to go well. And oftentimes, you as the caregiver will get frustrated. You'll go to your limbic system if your parents are in their brainstem or their limbic system. All right, so one thing that you have to do is to spend a little bit of time just kind of recognizing brain states. Kind of watch your family, watch the people at the grocery store, watch your parents, do some observation and kind of identify if they're in the thinking part of their brain, which is the prefrontal cortex, the limbic system, which is the emotional part of the brain, or their brainstem, which is the safety part of the brain. Now, once you feel like you've got a pretty good handle on that, then the second step is to quote unquote talk to that brain state. Basically, like I said, if a person's in their prefrontal cortex, you're not going to have a problem. But if they're here in their limbic system, you've got to regulate them and you've got to move them to their prefrontal cortex. Same if they're in their brainstem. You've got to talk to them in that place to move them to their limbic system, to move them to their prefrontal cortex. So let's say that someone is in their brainstem, fight, flight, fool, or freeze. Your parents or anyone in this state needs to feel safe, not just physically safe, but emotionally safe. So what you want to do for a person like that is to really say things like, you're safe, you're okay, I'm here, I'm going to help you. And often the way that you do that is you want to bring your voice down, you want to talk slower, you want to talk quieter, and you can even pivot like rock, because that bilateral movement can calm them down. It kind of downloads it to them. So, and you can take some deep breaths, you're okay, I'm here, I'm going to help you. And by doing that, you will move them. Sometimes they'll go straight to their prefrontal cortex, but more often they'll move just from here to their limbic system. Then they might start doing, quit telling me that, I'm not going to be safe. It's not going to be okay. They may start yelling at you or they may start crying. If they do that, then yay, you've moved them to their limbic system. Now you need to talk to the person that's in this state. A person who is in their limbic system needs to feel heard and understood. They need to feel loved. So the way that you talk to a person in this state is to reflect their feelings, be empathic, do some empathic nodding. It's really hard. You're really scared. You really wish that you could do whatever. You're really angry. Pick a feeling, right? It just gives them this sense that you are trying to understand where they're coming from and just being empathic. And what happens here is once you talk to them, then that will move them. They will begin to be regulated, emotionally regulated, and hopefully they'll be in their prefrontal cortex. Let's see if there's anything else about that. I think just to remind you that it's all about moving them. The goal is to move them to the thinking part of their brain. Sometimes this goes very fast and sometimes it takes a little while. I had someone say, why have we got to do these mental gymnastics? Why can't they just do what we tell them to do, or they can't just problem solve? Well, my response to that is always like, it's not really about mental gymnastics. It's really about connecting, right? So you want to connect, make your parents feel safe, or your children or your partner. It works for everybody, so that you can move them to a place where they can problem solve and think. So, a few things to note about this. First of all, you need to take a breath because you have to be in your prefrontal cortex in order for this to work. If you go into a conversation or with your parents or loved one and you are dysregulated, if you're edgy or prickly or anxious sounding, they're going to feel that, and you're already going to get started off on the right foot. So the first thing you have to do is regulate yourself. The second thing I would say about this is it takes a little practice. It takes some time to find your voice. It feels kind of artificial when you first start talking to your parents this way, but I promise, even if you do it artificially, it will still work. And I think I mentioned this works with everyone. It works with your partner, your spouse, your kids, your colleagues. I won't say that this strategy is magic, but it is magical. I've seen it work personally and professionally so many times, even if you're just bumbling through, right? So take the time and really give yourself the opportunity to practice it. Another thing I would say is that if you practice it when the stakes aren't so high, when it's like a small aggravation or something like that, then you might be able to move them more quickly through the steps. Sometimes you have to revisit the steps. Sometimes you have to slow it down, like they may stay in their limbic system a little while, and then you might think you've moved to the prefrontal cortex, and then you might have to move back to the limbic system. So just be patient with yourself as you practice this. Obviously, I have a lot more resources for you. If you use this, click on this QR code, you can download the 180 shift from frustrated to confident. It takes this same idea and then it adds another level to it by giving some scripts and some real life examples of things that have come up with caregivers. So I hope that you have found this hack of the week helpful, and I look forward to you trying it out. And look me up and reach out if you have any questions. Love talking about this. I love helping people with their caregiving role. And yeah, take care. All right. Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this Slacker hack of the week. Remember, smart work beats busy work. Until next time, stay empowered, stay slacking. If you want to do a good deed of the day and help us grow the channel and bring you even more amazing content, leave us a comment, subscribe, leave us a review, do all the things. We'll see you guys next time.